It's amazing how something as small and ordinary as a 5-cent coin can hold secrets worth thousands of dollars. Every day, we pass them through our hands without a second thought, dropping them in tip jars, tossing them in car consoles, or letting them gather dust at the bottom of a jar. But what if I told you that one of those nickels you overlooked could actually be a rare treasure? Tonight, we're focusing on the 1988 P. Jefferson 5-cent coin, a seemingly mundane piece of change that, in certain rare conditions, can fetch thousands of dollars thanks to unusual minting errors, rare planchets, and stunning transitional anomalies. By the time this story ends, you might just find yourself pulling out every old nickel you own, wondering what secrets they've been hiding all along. The Jefferson nickel has always been an icon of American coinage, solid, dependable, and largely unchanged since its introduction in 1938. Designed by Felix Schlag, the coin featured Thomas Jefferson's portrait on the obverse and his Monticello home on the reverse, capturing both the statesman's legacy and his personal history. The Jefferson nickel replaced the Buffalo nickel after a quarter-century run, and while collectors initially missed the wild beauty of the bison design, they soon came to appreciate the quiet dignity of Jefferson's profile. BY 1988, the nickel had already endured half a century of history. Struck at 3 mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, billions of Jefferson nickels had entered circulation by then. But as is often the case, when producing vast numbers of coins, mistakes inevitably happened. And it's those mistakes that keep collectors awake at night, hunting for that one magical error that turns a 5-cent piece into a small fortune. The 1988 P nickel was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. That year, the mint churned out hundreds of millions of them, each bearing the P mint mark and the familiar copper-nickel composition. But not all 1988 nickels came out as intended. Some were struck on improper planchets, thin, silver-colored blanks intended for dimes, or even foreign coin stock, resulting in underweight nickels with curious colors and unusual diameters. These wrong planchet errors are exceedingly rare, but when they show up, they spark fierce bidding at auction. One such 1988 P nickel struck on a dime planchet sold for over $3,200 at a major auction. An astonishing price for a coin nobody expected to stand out. But the real stars of the 1988 P nickels are the double die obverse errors. Double die errors happen during the die-making process, when the design hub impresses the die more than once, slightly out of alignment. This results in letters and numbers appearing doubled, like ghostly echoes of themselves. On a 1988 P nickel, collectors have reported doubling most prominently on the word Liberty and on Jefferson's eye and date. These doubling details could be dramatic or subtle, but either way, they transform an otherwise ordinary coin into a collector's prize. Prices for high-grade 1988 P double die obverse nickels have reached over $2,000 at auction, with particularly crisp and dramatic examples commanding even more. What makes these errors so appealing isn't just their rarity, it's the story they tell about the mint itself. The late 1980s was a transitional period for the U.S. Mint. New machinery and improved quality control systems were being phased in, but the sheer scale of production meant that some errors still slipped through. For collectors, these errors are like time capsules, capturing a moment when human oversight and mechanical imperfection created something unique. And it's not just circulation strikes that hold surprises. Even a 1988 proof nickel struck at the San Francisco Mint have been known to harbor stunning mistakes. Proof coins are meant to be the pinnacle of perfection, struck multiple times on polished planchets for collectors, with deep mirror-like fields and frosted designs. But occasionally, even these specially made coins can feature double dies, die clashes, or improper frosting on one side. Such proof errors are exceedingly rare and sought after by collectors who crave both the beauty of a proof finish and the intrigue of an error coin. One collector who specializes in Jefferson nickels described finding his first 1988 P error as electric. He'd spent countless evenings searching through rolls of nickels, magnifying glass in hand, when he finally spotted the faint but unmistakable doubling on Liberty. He later sold that coin for nearly $1,800. Not enough to retire on, but enough to make every nickel hunt after that even more exciting. Auction records tell similar stories. A remarkable 1988 P nickel with a bold double die obverse in mint state condition fetched $3,750 at a 2021 auction, thrilling both the seller and the buyer. Another wrong planchet 1988 P nickel, perfectly preserved in an NGC slab, crossed the block at $3,100, thanks to its dramatic underweight and silver-colored planchet. Stories like these keep the collecting community buzzing with excitement, reminding everyone that valuable treasures can still be found in pocket change, though what's even more fascinating is how overlooked these coins remain. The Jefferson nickel is often seen as a humble workhorse, necessary but unremarkable. That's exactly why it's so satisfying when one turns out to be extraordinary. Each 1988 P-era nickel is a little rebellion against the predictable, a quiet reminder that even in mass production, accidents happen. And sometimes those accidents are beautiful. There's also a nostalgic charm to these coins. For many collectors, the Jefferson nickel evokes memories of childhood, when every trip to the store might end with a pocket full of coins to sort through at home. Back then, every nickel was a mystery waiting to be solved. That same sense of wonder lingers today, especially when you realize that something as simple as a doubled letter or a lighter than usual weight could mean the difference between a 5-cent piece and a $5,000 rarity. Even if you're not a seasoned numismatist, there's something deeply satisfying about being able to recognize these errors and understand what makes them special. It's like learning a secret language written into our money, a hidden history of the mint, of human hands and mechanical flaws, of rare moments when things didn't go exactly as planned. What should you look for in your own collection? Start by checking for doubling on the obverse, particularly on Liberty, the date, and Jefferson's eye. Look for nickels that seem off in color or weight. They might have been struck on the wrong planchet. And don't forget about proof nickels from 1988, either. Even though they were intended to be flawless, a few escaped with remarkable errors. The best way to confirm what you've found is to have the coin graded and authenticated by a trusted service like PCGS or NGC. They'll be able to certify the error and grade the coin's condition, which has a huge impact on its value. Above all, don't stop looking. That's the real joy of coin collecting. The chase, the hope that the next handful of change could hold something incredible. Every roll of nickels is another chance to uncover a hidden story, a piece of history that's been hiding in plain sight. Here's the takeaway tonight. The next time you find yourself with a handful of nickels, don't just drop them in a jar. Take a closer look. That plain old 1988 P. Jefferson nickel might just surprise you. Check for the telltale signs of doubling. Feel the weight in your hand, and don't dismiss the odd ones. They could be worth far more than you think. Because at the end of the day, every coin has a story, and some of those stories are worth more than you ever imagined. Keep searching, keep learning, and keep collecting. Who knows? Your next great find could be sitting quietly in your pocket right now, waiting for you to notice. You might want to sit down for this one, because the next time you reach into your pocket for some loose change, you could be holding a tiny treasure worth thousands of dollars. That's right. Among the coins we all take for granted, there's one that collectors would pay a fortune to own. The seemingly ordinary 1990p Jefferson 5-cent coin is a perfect example. At first glance, it's just another nickel. But thanks to rare minting errors, unusual planchets, and remarkable transitional anomalies, it's anything but ordinary. Tonight, we're peeling back the curtain on this unassuming coin to reveal its hidden history and stunning value. And by the end, you just might be digging through your own collection to see what you've got hiding in plain sight. The story of the Jefferson nickel itself is steeped in history. First introduced in 1938 to replace the beloved Buffalo nickel, the Jefferson design was chosen after a national competition. The winning artist, Felix Schlag, immortalized Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his Monticello estate on the reverse. While the core design remained largely unchanged for decades, what happened behind the scenes at the mint, the errors, experiments, and sometimes chaos, led to some of the most sought-after variations in modern coin collecting. Now fast forward to 1990 at the Philadelphia Mint. Billions of nickels were churned out that year, each stamped with the familiar P Mint mark. Most of them are worth exactly face value, 5 cents. But in the rush of production, a few mistakes slipped through, mistakes that transformed an everyday coin into a numismatic superstar. Among the most intriguing errors found on 1990p nickels are double-die obverse specimens. These rare examples display a dramatic doubling effect on the date and the word Liberty, where the letters appear as if shadowed or echoed, a telltale sign of a misaligned hubbing during the die creation. Collectors prize these for their eye-catching detail and rarity, and that's just the beginning. Some 1990p nickels are known to have been struck on the wrong planchet, meaning instead of the standard copper-nickel blank, they were mistakenly struck on a dime planchet or even on foreign coin stock. These wrong planchet errors result in nickels that are underweight and often slightly smaller, but still show the full design squeezed into an unusual size. These mistakes were so rare and so quickly removed from circulation that finding one today is like finding a needle in a haystack. Auction records tell the story of how valuable these nickels can be. One particularly striking double-die, obverse 1990p sold for over $3,500 at auction, and a spectacular off-metal strike on a planchet intended for a clad dime fetched nearly $4,200. For what was once a 5-cent piece rattling around in a pocket, these prices are enough to make anyone stop and take a second look. The most jaw-dropping find? A unique transitional error specimen struck on an experimental planchet intended for later years. A coin that stunned collectors when hammered for nearly $7,000. Making headlines in the numismatic world, it's easy to overlook the stories behind these coins. After all, the Jefferson nickel has always been the quiet workhorse of American change. But these rare mistakes are a reminder that even the most mundane objects can hold secrets if you know where to look. One retired collector who specializes in Jefferson nickels said it best. It's like every nickel has a story. Some are just louder than others. Even proof coins of 1990, struck in San Francisco with a mirror finish for collectors, have had their surprises. Occasionally, a proof coin escapes the mint with a striking error, a double die, or even a cameo frost missing entirely on one side. These proof errors, while not quite as dramatic in value as the rarest circulation strikes, still command significant premiums among collectors who appreciate the artistry of mistakes. Part of what makes the 1990p nickels so intriguing is their place in history. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, the U.S. Mint was modernizing and moving to more efficient production methods. Transitional errors became more likely as new presses and experimental planchets were tested. For a brief moment, errors like the ones we see on the 1990p slipped out of the Philadelphia Mint unnoticed. Anomalies that today tell a story of technological change and human oversight. For seasoned collectors, hunting for these errors is a thrilling challenge. They'll spend hours poring over rolls of nickels, magnifier in hand, hoping to spot that elusive double date or the odd shimmer of a wrong metal strike. But you don't have to be an expert to start your own treasure hunt. The next time you get change at the grocery store or find an old jar of coins in the attic, take a close look at the nickels. The 1990p is just one of many years with hidden gems waiting to be discovered. And even if you don't find one worth thousands, there's something nostalgic, almost magical, about holding a piece of history in your hand. These coins passed through countless lives, pockets, and cash registers before ending up with you. They are tiny witnesses to decades of American life. And sometimes, they carry more than just memories that, oh, here's your takeaway tonight. Don't dismiss the small change. Every coin has a story, and some of them could be worth far more than you ever imagined. Pull out that jar of old nickels, grab a magnifier, and see if the next big find is already in your hands. If you do find something unusual, a doubling, a misshapen edge, an odd color or weight, set aside and have it checked by a reputable dealer or grading service. You never know when your next nickel might just be one of the rarest treasures in numismatic history. After all, the 1990p Jefferson nickel reminds us that even the quietest coins can sometimes speak volumes, and perhaps even change your life. Keep looking, keep wondering, and keep collecting. You never know what incredible story might be hiding in your pocket right now. What if I told you that one of the most unassuming coins you might find in your pocket change, a humble Jefferson 5-cent coin for 1958, could actually be hiding a story worth thousands of dollars? It sounds impossible, doesn't it? But time and time again, collectors and lucky finders have uncovered rare gems hiding in plain sight. Coins struck with rare, minting errors, unusual planchets, and even stunning double-die designs. These are the kinds of coins that turn a simple nickel into a prized collectible. And tonight, we're about to uncover the surprising history and hidden value behind the 1958 Jefferson nickel. By the end of this story, you just might find yourself digging through that old coffee can of change with fresh eyes, hunting for a little piece of numismatic magic. When it comes to American coins, the Jefferson nickel has always been a quiet classic. Introduced in 1938 to replace the beloved Buffalo nickel, It was designed by Felix Schlag to depict Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his Monticello home on the reverse. Over the decades, it became one of the most familiar coins in circulation, steady, dependable, and easy to overlook. But just because it's common doesn't mean it's ordinary. Especially not in the case of 1958. The year 1958 itself was a moment of transition and optimism in America. Dwight D. Eisenhower was president, NASA was in its infancy, and the U.S. Mint was still working with the equipment and techniques that would soon give way to more modern processes. That year, the Jefferson nickel was struck at two different mints, Philadelphia and Denver, each leaving its mark in the form of a D mint mark for Denver or no mint mark at all for Philadelphia. Over 168 million nickels were struck in total that year, the vast majority of which were perfectly ordinary. But in that massive sea of nickels, a few mistakes slipped through, mistakes that turned into treasures for those lucky enough to discover them. One of the most sought-after errors for 1958 is the double die obverse. These fascinating coins show a doubling effect on the inscriptions, most commonly in the word liberty, the motto, "In God We Trust," or the date itself. Under a magnifying glass, the letters almost appear to be echoed, like a faint shadow of the design shifted slightly to the side. This kind of doubling happens during the die creation process, when the hub impresses the die more than once at slightly misaligned angles. In 1958, a handful of dies produced with this kind of doubling managed to strike coins that escaped quality control and entered circulation. The result? A Jefferson nickel worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars to collectors today. Auction records have borne this out, with sharp examples of the 1958 double die obverse nickels commanding as much as $2,500 at major sales. Even circulated examples in decent condition can bring several $100s, a remarkable return for what many assume is just a common piece of pocket change. Collectors cherish these coins not only for their rarity, but also for the striking visual character of the doubling itself, which makes each one feel like a small artistic accident frozen in time. But doubling isn't the only thing that makes 1958 Jefferson nickels special. That year, a small number of nickels were struck on improper planchets, blank discs of metal intended for other denominations or even foreign coins. The most famous of these are nickels struck on dime planchets, which are smaller and thinner. These wrong planchet nickels are underweight, and their designs often appear weakly struck around the edges because the dies weren't made for the smaller surface. At a glance, they almost look like a mistake you dismiss, but in reality, they're incredibly rare and desirable. In fact, one such 1958 nickel on a dime planchet sold for over $4,200 at auction. Simply because of this remarkable anomaly, there's a kind of magic to these mistakes. Every wrong planchet nickel tells a story about the chaos and human error behind the scenes at the mint, a moment when production pressures and imperfect checks allowed something strange to slip past. For collectors, these coins are more than just metal. They're relics of the mint's history and testament to the idea that even the most tightly controlled processes can produce surprises. And if we turn our attention to proof coins from 1958, another layer of intrigue unfolds. That year, the San Francisco Mint no longer struck circulating nickels, but the Philadelphia Mint produced a limited number of specially prepared proof coins for collectors. These proofs were struck on carefully polished planchets with dies that were also specially prepared to create mirror-like surfaces and frosted devices. Most 1958 proof nickels are pristine, but every now and then, even proofs feature remarkable errors, a double die here, a die clash there, or even a proof struck on an improper blank. These rare errors can bring thousands of dollars and are especially coveted by collectors who appreciate the juxtaposition of intended perfection with accidental imperfection. For many collectors, the hunt for these rare 1958 nickels began with childhood memories, sorting through change from the grocery store, lining up coins by date and mint mark on the kitchen table. The Jefferson nickel became a gateway to a lifelong passion, and the discovery of something as unusual as a double die or wrong planchet only fueled the excitement. One collector recalled spending his allowance on rolls of nickels from the bank in the 1980s, searching through them one by one with a magnifier in hand. He was stunned when he found a 1958 double die obverse, a coin he later sold for $1,200 to fund his next big collecting goal. Stories like his are part of what makes coin collecting so irresistible. Every coin is a potential treasure, And even the most ordinary-looking ones can hide secrets if you know where to look. And with so many 1958 nickels still out there in circulation, it's entirely possible that more of these hidden gems are waiting to be discovered. If you have an old jar of change, or maybe a collection of coins passed down through your family, now is the time to take a closer look. Examine every 1958 nickel carefully, paying special attention to the inscriptions for signs of doubling, or to the weight and diameter for possible wrong planchet strikes. Even nickels in worn condition can be worth examining, because rare errors often carry value regardless of grade. The best way to confirm what you've found is to have the coin authenticated and graded by a trusted third-party grading service, such as NGC or PCGS. These services will not only verify the error, but also assign a grade that could dramatically influence the coin's value at auction or in private sales. What makes the 1958 Jefferson nickel story so powerful is that it reminds us all to pay closer attention to the everyday things we take for granted. These nickels passed through millions of hands over the decades, bought candy, paid bus fares, jingled and changed drawers. And yet, some carried rare quirks that went unnoticed for years. That kind of hidden history makes even the smallest coin feel like a link to a bigger story. A piece of American history stamped in copper nickel alloy. So here's your takeaway tonight. Don't underestimate the coins in your pocket. That unassuming 1958 Jefferson nickel you've ignored all these years could very well be one of the rare ones. Check for doubled letters, unusual weights, or mismatched planchets. Take the time to really look, because the next great find could be hiding right under your nose. After all, every coin has a story, and sometimes those stories are worth more than you ever imagined. Keep searching, keep learning, and never stop wondering about what treasures might still be waiting in your own collection. The thrill of the hunt is part of what makes this hobby so timeless, so magical. And who knows? The next time you hold a nickel in your hand, it just might be worth more than its weight in silver. It might just be priceless.